we'll go ahead and record. I'm going to share my screen, and kind of like last time, this is for our visual learners. This is a little bit deeper dive into what we've been talking about on As a Man Thinketh, and he started before I was ready. So we'll go ahead and get started. So,
Anyway, fast.
He did, right? He did. I'm going to just go ahead and mute us all just for a second while I kind of do this teaching real quick. And as I do the teaching, feel free to take some notes, right? Feel free to take some notes. And one of the things I always say about taking notes is take notes on your thoughts, right? Take notes on the thoughts and the ideas that come to your mind as I talk, because you don't necessarily want to regurgitate back to yourself any of the things that I say, but sometimes the things I say, or even when you're in church or whatever, it springs ideas. And if you don't write those ideas down or thoughts down, they're kind of going forever, right? So you want to go ahead and write those down, write the thoughts that come to your mind as we talk into this. So this is kind of our second week into this. And this week, if you go back through our Facebook page and go back through the online platform, you'll notice that there were 4 lessons that were released this week. We did Thought and I think it's Thought and Character Part 1. Then I released that video of my mentors, Roddy Galbraith and Paul Martinelli, doing the 7 levels of character. Man, that's an awesome training. Then we did Thought and Character Part 2, and then Effect of Thought on Circumstance. I love the title of that, right? I think that's just some good stuff. And then we're doing a live video here today that I'll also upload on there. And there was just some things in there that, as we kind of talked, or as we did, that I just thought were too good not to go over again and go deeper into. So I want to pick up on a couple of things that I think are really important in this chapter, kind of on thought and character, on the effect of thought and circumstance. And if you've listened to any of those audios yet, you'll notice that we dig straight into the idea of law, right? This idea of law. And I think this is super important for us to know and understand. And if you, again, listen to the audio on thought and circumstance, I think that was released yesterday. You kind of heard my ramble a little bit on our brothers and sisters in Christ, right? And with these, I started talking about the law of vibration. And I think kind of going back to that, there are laws that govern the way we think, behave, and create. There are laws of gravity. If you don't believe in the law of gravity, go to the roof and step off and you will become a believer, right? I promise you. And there are also laws to the way that we think, create, and behave. But I think many times for our brothers and sisters in Christ, and a lot of times we do too, is like, ooh, that is new age stuff. That is, I don't want to mess with that. That is new age stuff. And guys, this is not new age mumbo jumbo crazy talking point stuff, right? This is things that God created. People will say these are universal laws, but I'm going to say they're God's laws and the universe obeys, right? That God created things. And how many of you know that the enemy, he tries to replicate, right? He tries to steal and reproduce what God has created to make it evil and not for good, right? And I think this is kind of why our brothers and sisters in Christ have kind of stayed away from some of these laws that govern the way we think and behave. But Jesus even talks about that the men of this world, they are more shrewd and wise in their dealings with the world than the men of righteousness. And I think it's time that we learn these things, apply these things, and impact the world, right? So anyway, didn't mean to go on that rabbit trail with you guys, but let's kind of just dig right on in here. So in the book, I think on line 32, he talks about man is growth by law, and it's not a creation by artifice. And this is really worth thinking about. It's all worth thinking about, really, to be honest, but this is worth thinking about as well. One of the highlights, I think, because I think there you think man is the growth by law, and you'd want to pick up on that, and not a creation by artifice. So this didn't go forward like I thought. There we go. We'll do this. All right. But look at these words he uses. Man is a growth by law, not a creation by artifice. And it's interesting, isn't it? man is a growth by law, not a creation by trickery. You think about a growth by law. Think of a small little tree that needs to become a big tree, right? Or wants to become a big tree. It has to grow from what it already is, right? And what it's going to become. Everything that it has been through and is at the point has prepared it for what it's going to do next. It can only grow into what it's going to be from where it is right now. And I love this idea that it's not through a creation by trickery, but by law that it grows, right? By law. So if you think about that, what's the opposite of law? It's luck, isn't it? Or chance. And there's a quote right here I've got by Voltaire, and he said that chance is nonsense, really. It's this idea that things are going to happen and there's no cause for them. Chance, he says, is a word that we've invented to describe the known effects of unknown causes. How about that? So you think about that with regards to our lives. If you think about it, we know the known effects, don't we? We know if we look at our lives and say, I'm not as rich as I want to be, or maybe I'm not as happy as I want to be, or I'm not, whatever, you can fill in the blanks with whatever. We know what the known effects are. Our problem, though, is we don't know what the unknown causes are. And if we don't know what they are, very often we'll say, well, that is just luck or bad luck or fate or chance or whatever, other people use to put in there, right? And he says chance is a word we've invented to describe the known effects of unknown causes. So if you think about how do we get to the bottom of these causes then? Well, that's where it gives us this kind of, he gives us in the book this powerful metaphor in the chapter. He says the metaphor of the garden, right? He has this metaphor of the garden, and it's really, really, really powerful. He says in the visible and material world, in the visible and material world, in the garden we plant the seeds, and then the seeds they grow, and then they turn into plants, and the plants blossom, and the blossom that turns into fruits, and fruits produce the results, right? Simple. I mean, I think every one of us on here can understand that in the physical world, right? You're all familiar with this. You probably did in school the experiment where you put the seed in the little styrofoam cup, and you sit the cup on the windowsill, and you check it every day. Has it broke through? Has anything happened yet? Has it started to crack the soil yet, right? You've probably done this, and we all know this, right? We all kind of know this. So, but what about, he says on line 32 or 34, I think, the hidden realm of thought. See, here the garden is the fertile field of our subconscious mind, and the seeds that we're talking about, they're the seeds of thoughts. And those thoughts then take root and they sprout and grow into beliefs, right? And those beliefs drive our behavior. And those actions, then, the fruits of our labor, those actions produce our results. And Jesus talks about by their fruits, we'll know them, right? By their results, you'll know them. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? So in one of the audios, we talked about this law of gender too. I talked about that one. That's another one of those laws of that govern the way we think, create, and behave, right? And think about this in regard to tomato plants, right? Let's say tomato plants. Let's say a tomato plant, the tomato seeds are planted, and then it turns into a plant, right? The plant blossoms, and then you produce the fruit. And those fruit, it falls to the floor, and then what? It's more tomato seeds, right? More tomato seeds are planted in the garden. The tomato plant, it proliferates because it can't do anything else, right? It's going to proliferate. That's what it does. And if you think about it, this old tomato plant that we've got right here, it can't produce carrot seeds. It can't produce black-eyed pea seeds, right? A tomato plant can't produce apple seeds. What does a tomato plant produce? Tomato seeds, right? To produce more tomato plants. That's the way it kind of works, isn't it? And with this law of gender, we know exactly how long it takes for a tomato seed to germinate and to sprout. And this is in that visible and material world. But what about this hidden realm of thought? Well, that's a little bit more confusing, right? It's a bit more perplexing because we still have the seeds of thought, which take root and they sprout into beliefs, and beliefs, like we talked about, drive our behavior, and our behavior produces the results that we're getting in our lives and in the world, right? But just like that tomato plant can't give birth or can't produce carrot seeds, the beliefs of poverty, there's no way that beliefs of poverty are going to produce thoughts of prosperity, right? Makes sense, doesn't it? Or vice versa, beliefs of prosperity, they ain't going to produce thoughts of poverty, right? You can see there very clearly what needs to change. It's the beliefs that need to be changed, maybe even uprooted, right? Maybe dug out or maybe tweaked, but good thoughts are not going to come from bad beliefs or vice versa, just like the seeds of that tomato plant. You know, the other thing that I think is worth noting as well with the law of gender, you know, we know how long it takes for a tomato seed to become a tomato plant, right? I mean, we can Google that if we needed to, but we don't know how long it's going to take for a dream to take root and sprout and grow from the hidden realm of thought. That's kind of why we need to persist, isn't it? Earl Nightingale, he said, this is a bit depressing, I think, to think about it, but I think it's true, and it makes a powerful point. He called this the self-perpetuating, the self-defeating, cycle of the poor, where we just stick with the same thinking over and over and over. And when we want some help, we typically go to the people who are getting the same exact results as we are, right? And we follow people who are getting the same exact results as we are, the results that we don't even want. And he called this the self-perpetuating cycle of the poor. You guys are all in the personal growth and development, so I know you've heard of Zig Ziglar, right? And on some of his earlier lessons, he talked about this processionary caterpillars, right? And I don't know if any of you have heard him talk about that, but where these caterpillars, they just go round and round and round and round, and they just follow each other until they die. They just follow each other until they die. They think the person in front of them knows better than them, so what they do is they just keep following them until they die. It's kind of crazy, right? So what do we have to change then? What do we have to change? What do we have to change? Well, this idea, the metaphor of what we are by thought, we've wrought and built our character. Wrought by thought, I think is just so, man, that's good, because that's what needs to change, isn't it? But we can't just magically change and become something different, right? It needs to grow into something different. It needs to be shaped into something different. It needs to be molded into something different. And that analogy that we talked about in the lesson, I think I released about the wrought iron, I think is just really powerful because just like horseshoes, right? If you think about horseshoes, that horseshoe is put into the furnace and it's heated up, and then it's just hammered and hammered and hammered into shape. And in the same way, our character, it needs to be hammered into shape by our thought, mixed with our experience. Thought lived out in this physical world, right? Good stuff. I just think that's good stuff. So what is character then, right? I mean, it's one of those words that you hear, but what is it? I think it's all the things that we've talked about already. Of course, it's our thoughts. That's a big part of it. But the book Think and Grow Rich and As a Man Thinketh is the book. It's our thoughts, right? But it's also our beliefs and the emotions that stem from each of those beliefs. It's our perception. It's the way we see the world. It's our opinions. It's those dearly held opinions that we have. It's our cherished beliefs. It's our values. It's all those things. All those things make up our character. So when we look at our old buddy, sorry, I meant to pull that forward a little bit sooner, but our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions that we talked about. But if we look at our old buddy here, this stick man, we've got, the big circle that represents the mind. And then we've got the conscious and the subconscious. Yes, we can think in this conscious mind. Yes, it changes the way we feel in the subconscious mind, but the subconscious part of our mind It's that subconscious part of our mind that stores everything, all of our experiences, all of it is kept in there. And that's how our character is shaped. And that's where we need to go if we really want to change, isn't it? And that's what we're going to keep looking at. We're going to, as we dig further into this study, as we keep going into our As a Man Thinketh, we're going to dig a little bit further into character as we continue. And guys, I hope this has added value to you. I know this was a super short, quick little lesson here, but I just think it's definitely powerful. I think it's something that definitely look into and consider even more. So anyway, that's kind of, whoops, man, I didn't realize I had that thing closed. Anyway, well, that's kind of our deeper dive onto the thought and character part 1 and part 2, and in the effect of thought on circumstance. So anyway, I hope that added value too. I want to open it up for any takeaways or questions or, man, anything that jumped out to you guys.
Guess we got to unmute there first, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm still scribbling. That quote that you gave, Jesus said that men of this world are more shrewd, and what is that? Where's that come from?
Yeah, so Jesus tells the parable of what's it called? The shrewd steward, right? So you got this steward, and he's working for a king. This is the parable Jesus is telling, right? And this steward is working for a king, and then some guys come up to the king. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, okay? So
yeah,
I'm flowing here, right? And the guys come up to the king and said, "Hey, man, your steward here, he's been doing some shady stuff, right?" And the king calls the steward up, and he's like, "Hey, I hear you're doing all these things. That's not right. We're gonna have to get rid of you." So the steward has this idea. He's like, "You know what? I don't want to go work in the field, and I don't want to be a slave or anything like that. Let me go to all these people who owe my master, and let me talk to them." So he goes to one and say, "Hey, how much you owe my master?" And I don't know what he says. So he said, "Half it," right? And he does that. And he goes to another guy and he says, "Okay, well, half it, write down half." And he goes back, and the king does something interesting. He says, "Wicked and shrewd, but your judgment," and I don't know, whatever he says right there. But at the end of it is so interesting. What Jesus says is that the men of this world are more shrewd in their dealings with the men of this other men of this world. And I've just thought on that for a long time. And Jesus also talks about, being cunning as serpents, but innocent as doves, and I think we've got to learn these things, I think we've got to learn these things, and we've got to apply them for kingdom causes, not for the ways of the world, not to serve ourselves, but man, this, anyway, I'll stop right there before I get into a seminar mode. So anyway.
No, I think that's that quote just really jumped out at me, because I think I agree. I think there's a lot of truth in that. That's where I was trying to find that. And it's from Luke chapter 16.
Okay, I was about to go.
Once you kind of got going into it, it reminded me what it was. Okay. But I've never heard that quote put like that before.
Yeah. Well, the first time I read it, I probably read it like all of us a couple of times, but just one time it jumped out to me. I was like, that's interesting. Yeah. Jesus would say something like that the men of this world are more shrewd than the men of righteousness. And he goes on to say, and then that's where he starts talking about, later on in that chapter, he starts talking about being faithful with a little, anyway. So, yeah.
That is a good lesson.
Yeah. Anything else jump out at you guys? Or questions? Or is like, hey, a little short guy, I don't know about that.
I like that quote, a belief of poverty will never deliver prosperity. And kind of one of the things that I've been, somewhat focused on with the group that I associated with here, and even in my community, because I live in a very kind of impoverished communities. Stark County is ranked probably, I think it's like 93 of 96 communities in the state of Indiana. And I tell people this all the time, you know, it's not that there's not money here. We just have such a poor mentality. And, you know, trying to change that is, I mean, I don't even know what to compare it to. I mean, trying to get people to raise their standard of their thought life it's crazy to try to get them to think differently.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I heard a guy telling a story just, man, a couple of hours ago. I was listening to him, and he was talking about how he had this poverty mindset, grew up in poverty big time. And I don't know what you guys think about Bethel Church out in Redding, California, or Chris Valentin. I don't know what your thoughts are on him or anything like that. But he wrote this book called Riches, Wealth, and something. But he was talking about a story how he grew up in poverty and they were losing everything as he got older. And this guy gave him a check for $30,000, like they needed it, like they were, you know, on their last whatever. And the guy had a dream. And in that dream, God told him, hey, give him $30,000 because his dad had passed away, and that was part of his, what was passed on to him. So he passed $30,000 on this guy, and he was grateful and thankful. But he said, I started noticing something. Every time I would see this guy, I would turn and run, right? And he had to pee real bad one time, like super bad. And he wasn't even going to make it to the bathroom. He got into the bathroom and he noticed this guy was in the bathroom, but his back was turned to him, so he didn't see him. So he cut out, right? He cut out and run into the other bathroom. And as he was running, he's like, what in the world is wrong with me? You know, what is wrong with me? Why am I avoiding this guy? And he said he was up all night. He couldn't stop thinking about it. And so he prayed and he asked God, and God said, do you really want to know? And he said, I don't know. Yes. He said, you don't love yourself enough. You don't think you're worthy of $30,000. And if you're afraid that if he got to know you, that he wouldn't think you're worth $30,000 either. You don't love yourself enough to believe you're worth that. And anyway, he goes on to tell a lot more, but man, mindset is, dude, it'll crush us, right? It will. Or lift us up. So. Yeah. Edward, you got any thoughts?
No, I was kind of just thinking about, like, so my wife, she showed me something on some video, and it was this little kid going to school with his backpack. I mean, when I say little, he's like first day of kindergarten kind of thing. And he says three things. He says, I'm faithful, I'm blessed, and I can do anything. And I guess it, you know, dad, mom, whatever, told him those things and just told him to repeat that. It was a little black kid, and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? If every kid would just say that before going to school or whatever, think of how much more they can accomplish just by saying those positive things. But it makes a difference, you know, because he's convincing the subconscious mind. You know, who knows where he comes from or what background, you know, but you still give yourself a better chance. And then kind of on a personal note, I wanted to share some. So my son, he's 17, and you know, I've been I'm hard on him, you know, but also, you know, I'm trying to make him a good steward, a good man. And so he finally got this job that I've been pushing him to get, so that he has a schedule and he can focus and, you know, and be accountable and have a routine and stuff on. So he's working 40 hours a week at this place. It's kind of like Scruggs, you know, it's just like, it's got all kinds of lawn equipment, farm equipment, pesticides, you know, anything you name it, you can pick it up there, right? Like a co-op. And the other day he was so mad. He got up in the morning and he was so mad he didn't want to go to work because he didn't get any sleep. He was frustrated, and he was just like, and he'd only been at this job like a week, right? And he's frustrated. He's telling me, he's like, Dad, he's like, I can't do this, Dad. I can't. And, you know, I was just like, hang in there. You know, you just gotta, you'll figure it out. And he was frustrated with work because they put him on a registry. He didn't know how to do it. Anyway, long story short, he sends me a text message later that day. He went to work and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I hope you know how much you helped me stay positive. Thank you." And then I was like, "Hi." I was like, "Believe it or not, your mom's taught me a lot of that." And I was like, and then I said, "When you're positive, you're able to do a whole lot more." And he's like, and he said 100%. So, it's like, again, just getting the mindset and then passing that along too to other people. It's just perpetual. There you go, your word perpetual, right? You influence a lot of other people, a lot of other things. But that's the power of the mind, the hidden realm of thought, so to speak, that you're speaking of.
Yeah.
You guys ever take time to evaluate the effect that you have on other people?
It is something that comes up in my mind every now and then. Yeah.
Kind of what you're talking about, Edward. I think sometimes, even back to what you said about being in the growth seat and stuff, I don't think we really evaluate what that means, what we do. We don't always know or see the magnitude of it. But just within the last week, I've had a couple different occurrences where it has been brought to my attention just how I influence and impact others. And it was almost like mind boggling, and you could knock me over with a feather, for me to stand there and have people tell me the kind of influence and impact that I have on them. And I'm thinking, me, I'm looking over my shoulder, me, I'm just me, I'm nothing special. I'm just out here, living life, trying to not have to go back to work for anybody else right now. But, and I think oftentimes I don't think we really understand the impact that we have on other people. Mm-hmm. And it's really good when it comes from your children. Yeah. When you have those things like that. So, that probably made you just feel great to be able to get that from a 16, 17-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. But then also just like being on the positive side of it, there is that time where you're like, if you do get a negative thought or something pops in your mind that's not so great, how much you have to overcome that in order to stay positive. Corey, I think I was gonna kind of mention this morning, but it was every now and then I get this negative thought, and before it didn't dawn on me, but now it has. Like, I'm getting this negative thought, and it's like how much that's affected things, and it's nuts. And so the other day I said, you know what? I don't know. It has something to do. So this in particular was with my wife, but I said, I'm going to go to bed. I said, this time I'm going to go up to my wife. I'm going to give her a good night kiss because she likes to stay up late, and I'm trying to get in bed so I can get up early. And so I was like, I'm going to say good night. I was saying all in my head, and God was like, yeah, you go over there, you give her a kiss, and you tell her you love her, right? So I did that, right? Instead of just the standard, I'm just going to go to bed kind of thing. And it paid off tenfold. That later that day, and I was just like, so later that afternoon, the next day, that afternoon, I told my wife, I was like, hey, I just want you to know, what a wonderful evening it was or whatever. And I said,
you want me to stop recording real quick? And
I just said, all because I said, well, she's just looking at, she said, uh-huh. So it was kind of funny. I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell my group that. And, but I just the one positive impact, just from doing that one little thing, that was just amazing to me. And I was just like, Corey is hitting it on the nose with this book, and just.
But think about how that made her feel, for you to come up with that,
Yeah. I mean, and that was the point, was the perpetual motion of that, right? Yeah. And it's not so much what you get in return or what you receive, but it's how it affected somebody else,
Yeah. That's good, man. That's good. That's good stuff. Good stuff there, Edward. Yeah. that Voltaire quote, I like that, because that about the luck, stuff is talking about luck. Luck is just a word we made up to describe unknown causes of known, or unknown effects of known causes, and because for the longest time, people would say luck or whatever. I was like, I don't believe in luck, or whatever. But then I found that quote and I was like, I like that. It's a made up word. Yeah. So anyway, anything else or any questions, anything that, like, how do you actually apply this stuff? Or, I mean, that's great, but yeah, how do we go forward on some of this stuff, So any of those kind of questions.
Well, I guess my question wouldn't be so much how do you apply it, but how do you apply it rapidly? Because for me, I guess I've noticed that I come around to these things, but typically it takes me a little bit. How would you kind of interject that in right away and be able to see more of an immediate positive from it on some of these things?
Yeah. So we kind of talked about that character. Don't know how long it takes to build that character, right? But it's by one experience after another. And I think kind of like what we talked about last week is increasing that awareness, right? Yeah. We gotta be aware of what's going on in our mind, right? And as soon as it's not where you want it to be, I think boom, right then, you have to interrupt the thought, right? I'll give you an example of this. So the other day, we were leaving, I'd taken our son, we were eating supper, and I was coming back home. And man, we had hit every red light, every one of them. And I was just about to say, this is what I'm about to say, right? I was like, man, we hit every one of these red lights. That's what I was about to say. And as I was coming out of my mouth, I caught it. Like I said, isn't that interesting, right? But I caught it and I said, wow, we've hit every single one of these red lights. And my son said, yeah, we've hit every one of them. I said, well, next time we'll probably hit all green. Who knows, right? It just happens, right? That's not what I was about to say, but boom, right then. But it was like half a millisecond, because it went from these red lights to, yeah, we hit every one of these red lights. How about that? But anyway, so increasing that awareness. And as soon as it's not where you want it to go, right then is the moment of change, right? And I think as you do that over and over, it develops that character muscle, that habit muscle, right? Yeah. And I think it's a process over time, big time, over time. So, and I wish it was
no instant gratification there, huh?
Yeah. Well, I think when you have moments kind of like that, where you realize it and you instantly do it, I think that's very impactful in that subconscious mind, because there's emotion attached to it too, right? So remember, we can't speed up the time, but we can bend time a little bit whenever it comes to those C's in that subconscious mind. The way you do that is attach emotion to it. Yeah.
I guess I had a little bit of that this morning with what I was telling you about, when I rushed the listing, and then, because my response to that normally would have been anger. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm with you. And I think we're all in process, and I don't think you're never fully complete, but I think we're headed in the right direction. I think it's awesome to hear exactly what Edward said, exactly what you said. And I just wonder, if I would have never even started studying this, what my response would have been going through those red lights, and what impact that would have had on our son, Yeah. So
I think that the last 2 weeks, some things that you've harped, or one of the things that you've harped on, Corey, is like the visualization of things. So instead of having the thought, like, I'm actually visualizing what it would look like if the positive side of it, like, doing something, or what the reward would be from doing that, or something like that. And that's kind of helped me put more good thoughts in my mind, like positive things going on. So, or think about other things. So the visualization of it, I'm not saying it happens faster, but just having more and more of it than I had before. I mean, this is just last couple of weeks. So, it's been awesome.
I'll say one other thing is, we've got those negative thoughts or positive thoughts. If we've got those, we've talked about how visualizing and keeping that forefront of mind, because all the resources, all the people, all the things that are necessary for you to get from where you are to where you want to be, they're around you right now, right? But we miss them sometimes. Well, if we've got those negative thoughts, those negative beliefs, what we do is we start to recognize all the things that support that negative thought. And we was like, I told you that, yep, I always hit red lights. I'm always hitting red lights, but I forgot about the 14 or green lights I just went through, right? But if that's forefront of my mind, I find things that support that thought. But on the flip side, if I'm thinking positive and I'm looking for that, I find things to support that as well. So, it's I think in one of the videos that we did, we talked about feed your faith, starve your fear, which wolf you're going to feed, we get a choice to do that. So anyway, yeah.
Love it. Good
stuff. Any other thoughts, questions, feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways? Our kids, I'll say, where do you rate it at? And they'll say, that's about a 7. Or, a 10 or whatever, that's about a 4.
I like that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been great. I'll tell you, I mean, just the few lessons that we've done, just what I've been reading, so far and stuff, I can already see a positive change in the way I process some of that stuff.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I hope y'all have a great rest of the day. Next week, as both of you know, we'll be into the one on thought and health. I forget the title of it, but it's health and something. And then thought and circumstance, maybe? Thought and circumstance.
See, the effect of thought on health and the body.
Thought and purpose is the next one. Yeah. Thought and purpose. So the recording for Thought and Health will be on Monday or Tuesday, and then Thought and Purpose will be released on Wednesday or Thursday. Vice versa. There'll be a day in between, whatever days I'm able to get those posted. And then next week on Friday, we'll do another live teaching very similar to this, where we use the animated stickman type stuff. And we'll do that for 2 more weeks, I think. I think I've got I had to draw it out here what my plan was. But the very last week, we are going to do a live training on serenity. And basically what I'm going to do is we're going to go line by line in that chapter, because that is probably one of my favorite. And we're going to talk about it. And then that last week, we're going to write the chapter out. Write it out. Physically write the entire chapter out, word for word, 5 days in a row. Okay? And just
I hope it's a short chapter.
It is. It's short. Kind of short. But yeah, it's only like 5 or 6 pages. But what we're going to do is, if you go to it, where it says, kind of that second paragraph, a man becomes calm in the measure that he understands himself. What we're going to do is you write it out. You're going to put your name there. Corey, become calm in the measure that I understand myself as a thought evolved being. And anyway, so we'll write it out like that for 5 days in a row. So anyway, good stuff, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to press the